My name's Carter.
Carter was one of my dinner party friends.
Yes. So I have a question about America.
And we talked all about Buc-ee's. Do you know Buc-ee's?
We did.
I had never heard of or been to a Buc-ee's 8 weeks ago. I've never seen so much coffee and caramel corn.
It's impressive for sure. Okay. So
I'm really going to let you speak, sorry.
Okay.
It's only because I love you.
I appreciate that. So this is about American culture.
Great.
And you're incredibly versed in that. So is there an aspect of American culture that you mostly appreciate, and then on the other side, something that you think is difficult?
First, this is not a plant, but I love this question. Yes, and I'll tell you the two things that I love most in popular American culture. I am a great fan of the golden era of Hollywood. These are the films that were made in Hollywood through the studio system, starting in the 1930s, all the way through the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and through most of the 1960s until we got to the Vietnam War. I was born in 1964, January of 64, so I'm an epiphany baby, and I just turned 60. And that was the year, the summer of 64, where Vietnam really inclined. And because culture leads, politics doesn't lead, right? Culture leads. And because the culture began to decline, the movies began to decline. But the movies of the golden era of Hollywood, Carter, are absolute masterpieces. They are great art, even though they're popular art, and I believe in many ways, that defines part of the greatness of our country. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, The Searchers. I could go on and on and on and on. You know, Grace Kelly, Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne, Sidney Poitier. This is a remarkable time in the history of American film. And I love, in popular culture, the golden era. And I believe that, I agree very strongly with Balzac, who, as you know, is one of the great figures of French culture, right? Most French people would say that he is the height of the greatness of French literature. And Balzac believed that great literature, great art, could never ultimately be great art unless it had a moral arc, right? That its moral or spiritual arc powers great culture, even if it's highbrow, middlebrow, or lowbrow, all right? So my strong sense is that, and there are great exceptions to this, but many of the great films of the golden era, they have a moral arc. Good is rewarded, vice is punished. Virtue is complicated, but it's good. See where I'm going on this? Yeah. So I don't want to oversimplify, because great art is mysterious at some level. Why do we love the Mona Lisa? You know, why do we love the paintings of Winslow Homer? So film. Also, the American Songbook. These are the really objectively great popular ballads and songs of Tin Pan Alley in the history, mid-century, in the United States. I love the American Songbook. Yeah. By the way, that doesn't just date me. I happen to think we're making great films now. I mean, a lot of great films. And I'm not a nostalgist and sentimental. I don't think that everything was so great. You know, I mean, I am a conservative, you know. I like 13th century Gothic architecture. I'm glad we have 20th century medicine or 21st century medicine, right? So it's not all good then, all bad now. That's not how I see it. Yeah. So now, we have a sort of Damocles which is hanging over American culture. And it is the degrading of the human spirit. It's the degrading of human dignity. And making that funny or making that a form of pride. I'm really opposed to that. Anything that is in opposition to metaphysical equality and the greatness of the person is not fine art. That's my opinion. Yeah. Does that answer your question or no? No, but maybe it doesn't. I want to make sure you're okay with that. Okay. Has anybody seen The Boys in the Boat? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So you see what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Hayden Poorman.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask a little bit about introspection. How do you catch the seeds of pride within yourself, and how do you introspectively see that?
Now, my friend, I'm going to have you stand up again. I promise my hearing is 100%. But repeat again specifically what you're asking.
So how do you kind of introspectively catch the seeds of pride? How do you see that? Like, what are the ways you can see pride within yourself?
Got it. Okay. In the Christian life, faith and reason are not opposed to each other. They go together. Okay? Cognition is a gift of God. Okay? And the highest attainment, and I want to be very specific in answering your question, the highest attainment is not the intellectual good. I really don't care, Hayden, honestly, if you got the equivalent of 100% score on your SAT. What I really care about is your moral quotient, your virtue factor, your character. Character is destiny. Integrity is the coin of the realm. So I really, Tom Wolfe called them the masters of the universe, right? Radical chic, the people who control Broadway, who control Wall Street, the swamp where I live. We have a lot of swamp creatures, a lot, okay? Just ask them, they'll tell you how good they are, right? I find that off-putting. I find it a degradation of what we are supposed to be in the Christian life. And in the Christian life, using the gift of cognition, having the internal moral sense that conscience is a gift. Conscience is objectively the case, right? We can call evil evil and we can call good good, and they can never be the same thing. That's true in science, that's true in math, that's true in theology. They go together. And it's just not the case that somebody who is deceitful doesn't know they're being deceitful. That's not the case. They know. And they have to own it. And we spend far too much time in our country, culture, and civilization after having sin revealed to find all the reasons why that's really not the case. All the extenuating circumstances. No. I was not a victim. I was a victimizer. What I did was wrong. Objectively wrong. And now, right, in my own life, knowing that I could have a proclivity toward that, I have to war against it. And I'd like to tell you, Hayden, and all of your best friends, I would like to tell you tonight that I've never been prideful again. You know, that's just not the case. But I recognize it now. And people who know me recognize it. And I encourage people to say, that's stepping over the line. By the way, I have a very good friend, Tony Hughes. He's one of my favorite people in the whole universe. He's my golf partner, right? Yeah. And I love when he says that. You didn't get an 8. No. Yeah, right. But he can do that across the board. And by God's grace, and I do mean by God's grace, I have a lot of friends and comrades. And one of the things that is the strength of our friendship is total honesty and integrity. Total. To say, Hayden, you're a great guy, that's not a good word to use. That's not judgmental. That helps us, right? By the way, pride, you didn't ask this, but it's in the 40-yard lines, okay? Pride often is sex, power, money. For a nerd like me, it was plagiarism. but just as toxic. In for a dollar, in for a dime. And you know, I have to be very careful. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Or no? Because the coda to what you've asked is, this sounds very formal, and I don't intend it to. After all of this, I created a kind of board of directors of people I could know, love, and trust around me who were very honest with me. And I realized just the depth of the awfulness of the person I was, despite the fact that I was a Christian. My pastor could not have been more extraordinary. And I could go on and on and on. Maybe that doesn't answer your question, because I want to get to what you're asking. You have those eyes that say, well, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a place of overthinking, but like trying to like see like, okay, within myself, like what are areas that I'm
Yes,
prideful in?
there is overthinking. Yeah, there is overthinking, and mostly I think that's a good thing. That sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But in the Christian life, I think you have to live two ways. You have to live proactively, you have to live counterculturally, and you have to live transformatively. Now that sounds awfully overthought, doesn't it? But in the time that we're in, you have to, because you can slip so easily. And we are in a time that abides sin. We do, you know, almost encouraging it. And as Christians, we can never be in that camp. So overthinking probably, but in part because the cultural moment that we're in doesn't always, back to the films, doesn't always uplift the good. And I think living in light of the common good is a really important thing. And in community, I think that's very important. So I hope I got close to the mark. Yeah, thank you. Great question. Yes, hello.
Hello, my name is Kinsey.
Oh, another one of my dinner partners.
Yes. This afternoon we've talked a lot about courage.
Yes.
And I was wondering how you had the courage to step back out into a public role again after all of this happened.
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, how dare I talk about Lincoln and Churchill after my story? I did not have the courage of a lion, right? I wasn't even Reepicheep, you know? My favorite mouse in the whole world. That is a great question. I'm going to be very candid with you, and I think this isn't going to offend you, but it has the value of being true. I knew that, and this is the gospel. I knew after what had happened that I could make two choices. I could exist or I could live. And I'll tell you, it's Kinsley, yes? Kinsey. It's such a great name, Kinsey. You're like the great consultant, Kinsey. And it's such a nice name, Kinsey. I really had a temptation to just exist. I'm very serious about that. And back to your question, Hayden, if I may, I had many people come to me and say something like this: what you did wasn't that bad. I'm raising my right hand. I heard that limitless numbers of times. It wasn't that bad. I mean, my gosh, you didn't murder anyone. I heard that, you know, but that's not it, you know? That's like saying to an alcoholic, you can have one, you know? And by the way, it's that dangerous. It really is. But I made a determination in prayer that I was going to live a life of renewal, of restoration, of regeneration, and I was truly, authentically, measurably, demonstrably, I was going to start again. And I mean start again. Like the stroke victim who has to relearn the English language. right? And I had a remarkable moment. I was tempted to immediately find another job. I mean, married, children, mortgage, right? Marriage, mortgage, munchkins. I mean, life is expensive. And I was advised that's a terrible idea. Do some consulting, you know people, help them out, earn a good living, but don't take kind of a full-time, take the time. And that was very wise. And I did that for a year and a half, almost 2. And I came, you can't make this up. This is Providence. Jim Daly, who's the president of Focus on the Family, he's one of the finest people I have ever been honored to know. He is a great person. He called me. I was doing a little consulting for Focus, and he invited me to lunch here in Colorado Springs. I mean, I thought, gosh, flying to Colorado for lunch, okay, And we had about a 2-hour discussion. And after the tip and tax, he asked, do you want to come to Focus on the Family and to become our vice president of government and external relations and to open an office in Washington? And I picked my jaw up off the ground because I had had a list of the things that if it were a perfect world, in prayer, consistently, that I would love most to do after the Senate and after the White House. And the number one thing on the list was to work for Focus on the Family. Yeah, by the way, there's no pixie dust or magic in that. That is divine providence. Yeah. And I just marked my 15th year. Yeah, yeah. Yes? Hello. Where am I looking? Oh, sorry, Nick.
Hey.
Sorry.
Okay. So
The light is, yeah. Okay, yeah. Let me think of some other excuses.
Okay.
Yeah. Nick.
I was curious.
Is it Nick or Nicholas?
Nick works.
Sorry?
Nick.
But is your name Nicholas?
It is Nicholas.
So you're named for a saint.
Yes, I am.
Saint Nicholas.
I've heard this before. No.
The reason I'm asking is that I'm Macedonian 100% on my mother's side. On my father's side, I'm 100% German Lutheran. I'm 100% Macedonian on my mother's side. And Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of the Macedonian people. So, yeah. So we're Astro twins. Yeah, okay.
It's great to hear.
All right. Sorry.
I was curious what makes Tim Tim. Like, I love Dennis. I love Lytle. I love all the other speakers here.
Yeah.
None of them compare to you. They're all similar in some way.
Oh.
Well, okay. That sounds bad. They are all similar. They're all similar in the way they talk in some way. You are in a league of your own. I'm curious, what makes you the orator you are? I mean, I've never heard anybody like you. And just what do you attribute that level of communication to?
Well, first, that's characteristically gracious of you, and I appreciate that very much. And you remind me what I really love about California, which is that it's a real place. I don't know, except for I will say this, I'm just two friends talking. I don't know why, but since I was a young boy, like from the youngest age I can remember, I really love people, We would travel as a family, and I would kind of strike up conversations with people. Where are you from? What do you do? I remember meeting this Italian man called Francis Fuscaldo, who was from, Orange, New Jersey. And through this conversation, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I learned that, his father had known Thomas Edison, and I thought, I just love conversations like this. You never know where it's going to go, I remember being at the Metropolitan Museum of Art for a really great party, and I had this great conversation. I said, has anybody ever said that you look like Phil Collins? And he said, I am Phil Collins, So I think in answer to your very gracious comments, and I appreciate them very much, means a lot to me. I think it's just that I authentically, truly love people, and I think every one of you have just remarkable stories, backgrounds, thoughts, ideas, and it's fun just to really get to know people and to learn all about what makes them tick, you know? And for me, honestly, it really is people. Yeah, so thank you for asking, and thank you for your comments. Yes.
How you doing? I'm Anthony.
Hello, Anthony.
I got a two-part question for you. So you talked about.
I love two-parters.
Good. You talked about how.
At the White House, they call it follow-ups.
I'm just gonna let
My
you.
friend, I'm not exaggerating. You have the most wonderful smile.
Oh, thank
Have you
you.
been told that your whole life?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So.
You do.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So my question, the first part of the question is, you said that marriage is one of the greatest, or if it is the greatest thing that God's created. Can you kind of like speak into that and maybe like defend that stance
Yes.
to people that may hear that and be skeptical of that? And
Okay,
then,
now my friend Anthony, I want you to hold the second part.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Yeah, no
Am
problem.
I offending you?
No.
Okay, good. Scripture tells us that a marriage is the intimacy of Christ and the church. Okay. Now, I'll just say it. I have a difficult time plumbing the depths of that relationship. Because here we are, we're the church, right? And I'm speaking personally here, right? I mean, very personally. The intimacy of, in the Greco-Roman conception of the four kinds of love, okay? I'm not going to go way off course here. But in the best of marriages, those four loves are simultaneous. And you realize when you, and I speak from the, I promise, the depth of humility. When you are in a great marriage, there's nothing like it. You're doing life together, and there's only two of you. And in C.S. Lewis's book, A Grief Observed, he has that nearly impossible chapter to read when he explicates the idea that the cost of love, right, the cost of love is its potential loss at some point. And it's then that you know that that other person is utterly irreplaceable. And that's Christ in the church. To Christ, everybody here, right? Everybody here is irreplaceable. So I did, hand over heart, I did nothing to earn it or deserve it. Grace, right? I did nothing to earn or merit having a wonderful marriage. I didn't. By the way, marriage is really tough. Jenny and I have had spectacular arguments about the dumbest things, right? And we have had no arguments about the things that you think, my gosh, that's an argument starter. You know, I mean, it's illogical. But when you're in a great marriage, and I pray that every person in this room will have one, when you foster it, nourish it, work for it, it is extraordinary. And then children and grandchildren, but it's tough. It's tough. So that's what I mean. Yeah.
That kind of leads into my follow-up question when you were saying it's tough. So, like being in a position that's demanding, right?
Yes.
How do you balance a demanding position with also trying to maximize what you called the greatest thing that God made?
So I've written 4 books. I hope you and your 50,000 best friends will read them all. And in the first one, which is part memoir, I have a chapter that suggests that the days are long, but the years are short. Do you know that clever phrase? It's not mine. It's so true, and especially when you have children, you turn around and it's like, where did that time go? You know? It's a blink. When you're in the middle of young children and babies, it's like, oh my gosh, the days are, but it goes fast. Life goes fast. And I'd like to be able to tell you, Anthony, I'd like to be so crystalline that I'd be like a Colorado blue sky day, right? I am certain that I have not done well my role as husband and father in the way that I wanted to do it, you know? Busy days in the Senate, busy days at the White House, busy days at Focus. Life is busy. That's also how God made me. I kind of sometimes live my life in overdrive, and I kind of like it, you know? But that's also fraught with difficulty. So it's finding a balance, but that's a phrase, you know? Back to T.S. Eliot, back to the Bible, to redeem the time, to redeem the dream, to redeem the unseen moment in the higher dream. You know? You have to find the middle way between what he calls the fire and the rose. And the fire and the rose are one. It's very important. Ballast, gravitas. So that's very important. Right. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sasha.
Hello, Sasha.
I had a question.
Are you Russian?
I'm Ukrainian.
Ukrainian.
So I was hoping you could give some advice for someone who's suffering from inner turmoil, from a crisis of faith, and is having doubts in Christianity and wants to renew their faith.
I'm honored by that question more than you know, and I'll tell you. In the first 1 million years in heaven, I'm eager to be in my favorite chair speaking to St. Paul about precisely the question you have raised. St. Paul is one of the great writers of world history. His letters, they are, you could spend your entire life reading just Paul's letters. And you know that he wrestles in many ways, Sasha, with precisely the kind of issues you are raising. This is going to sound like an odd answer, in part to your question, but I find the faith struggle that you raise a blessing. I mean what I'm saying. I really mean this. The greatest writers of Western civilization that I am aware of all at some level wrestle with the question of faith. Who is God? You know, why did he create me? What is my relationship with him? What is this all about? You know, these are the questions that make life worth living. And I think it is very, very important in answering your question that I say to you that, and I'm going to be very clear about this, the joy of life is not in its culminating sense of now I've arrived. The joy is truly in the journey. It's in the journey. It's not when the train goes into the roundhouse, the brass band plays, and the balloons go up. You know? It's in the journey itself. Read Paul, you know? Read Peter. Read Moses. Read Elijah. I mean, they are dealing in the great conversation with precisely the issue you're raising. And I'll tell you, Sasha, where you will end up, by God's good grace. You will realize that Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship. Right? And that there is no one like Jesus Christ. He is the Messiah. Now, isn't it, I want to be, this is going to sound a bit like a rabbit trail, but I'm going to be, again, very specific. Plato and Jesus, that we know of, never wrote anything. Nothing. By the way, I'm not comparing Jesus and Plato as, yeah, okay. One's the Messiah and one isn't. Okay. But for these two towering figures of world philosophy and theology broadly or narrowly defined, we know their voices. You know Jesus' voice. You know Jesus' voice when it's caught by somebody who was with him, and you know when it's 2 degrees of separation, but it's the same voice. Right? To everything there is a season. Oh boy. Unpack that. Right? Right? Dante gets pretty close. The love, I think this is the greatest line in the history of poetry, right? The love that moved the sun and the stars. Back to your question, Anthony. Right? Where our reach cannot exceed our grasp. But that's important. But I think, you will eventually find that you come to the end of your proverbial rope and you realize that there's not nothing there, but that there is Jesus there. And it's revelatory. And it's new every day. Every single day. So that's my counsel. Read the great writers, read the great thinkers, ponder specifically the way that Paul thinks of it, and to understand that even someone like Moses was not allowed to go into the promised land, but that was a blessing to him and not a punishment. Right.
Thank you.
I'm going to say one thing that you didn't ask, and this is a bit counterintuitive. This is hard for me to say. Praise God every day of your life for every time he closed a door. Praise him to the highest heaven that for every time he said, Josh and Matthew and Cameron, no. That's a gift. Rick, I'm sure you can say in your own life, you look back and all those disappointments you have. At the time, they just seem overwhelming. How could that have happened? And then you realize, I'm so pleased in retrospect that God did not say yes, and that my life went in another direction. Yeah. So, Sasha, I'll be praying for you and for your country. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Right here, Tim.
Yes.
That was a good one.
It's
Sorry.
going, I love that line. It's going just great.
I'm happy to hear it.
By the way, what's on your hat?
My name is Dan. Oh, it's It's TX or Texas. It's actually a hat company made by this guy who goes to Hardin Simmons. It's a school like right by ACU, and it's his own business. So
okay, got
support
it.
and small business.
I thought maybe it was the Bucky sign.
No.
I'm just mesmerized by this beaver with buck teeth.
Yeah.
And I
He's
walked
awesome.
up to, huh?
He's awesome.
He is awesome. Yeah. And I walked up to the building and I saw this giant beaver and 5,000 places to put gas in the car and 7,000 places for coffee. And I thought, if you want a cinnamon bun or gas, come to Buc-ee's.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah. Right.
So,
but that's another hat.
Yeah, a whole different hat.
Yeah.
So you've spent a lot of time in Washington, and as someone who is
alas, yes.
Yes, and as someone who is not
35 years in the swamp.
35 years in the swamp.
By the way, when I landed in Denver today, I thought it's so great to be back in the United States.
So that alludes.
Honestly, I could smell freedom.
Yes, good. I'm happy.
I came
Try coming
over,
to Texas sometime. It's awesome.
Oh, I've been. I love it. I came over Kansas, which is flat as a pancake. And it looked like it had been iced because I've never seen that beautiful snow. And over the Rockies and so I thought, what an awesome country. What a remarkable, and we get to live here. Yeah,
It's a blessing.
Yeah, okay.
So my question is, all this time in Washington, and for someone who is not in Washington, all you see on the news and in the way that just people are feeling about politicians, there's this huge disconnect between the political class and the elite class and the people in the swamp and all of us. How do you see that being fixed, and how can the people like us really be a vessel for change in standing up for Christian values as we keep progressing towards a country that is further and further away from being under God?
Right. Thank you and good night. First, the politicians will never fix it. That's first. It's not Wall Street's country. It's not Hollywood's country. It's not Washington's country. It's your country. So what are you going to do about it? Democracy is not a spectator sport. We have lots of people with opinions, and we have very few people who actually want to get involved. That's a problem. Because in a constitutional republic, citizens and citizens' involvement is what matters. And if we don't have big citizen participation, then we'll lose our country. I'm an inveterate, bottomless optimist. And my view is that the problem is not Washington, Wall Street, or Hollywood. Those are problems. The problem is that we are living through a spiritual recession and crisis of the first order. And we are living in a moment in American history where, as a great country, we have artificially divided our soul from the mind and heart. And they go together. We are not a theocracy, but from our founding, we are a religious republic. And it's not a matter of kind of like strumming the banjo and nostalgically saying we need to get back to, no. It's about going forward. And I believe very strongly that the best days for our country are ahead of us, not behind us. I believe that. Why do I believe that? I believe it because I believe that revival is possible. There are many examples of great countries who have been in a spiritual crisis, who have found the moment for restoration, revival, and renewal. We need that. I'm praying for that. I know we all are praying for that. And I believe that occasionally God does clear his throat. And I travel about a third of the time. I get to spend a lot of time with your generation, which I love. And I believe that there are all kinds of seedlings of restoration, even in the middle of the destruction. The media do not look for restoration and renewal, right? They look for performers, right? People who are good on TV, like puppets, right? We don't need any more puppets, right? And I believe, even in this room, now you all think I'm patronizing you, but I'll say it. I believe even in a room like this, there are people who have every potential to be the great leaders for the next generation of America. I believe that very strongly. Right? Yeah. So I'm a great admirer of Frederick Douglass. I'm a great admirer of many of the people and many others I haven't spoken about. There are great Americans out there. I'm speaking to 80 plus of them tonight. We want something better and different, so we need to go do it. Yeah. Does that help? Does that get to what you're asking me?
Yeah, so what can we do now?
Be involved at every turn, wherever God is calling you. By the way, I mean be involved. It's really difficult. It's easy to write a check. It's easy to clap for people. It's very difficult to get involved, to invest our time, right? I can tell you, I had no plans at all in my life, none, zero, to live and work in Washington, D.C. But I've been there, lived and worked inside the Beltway for 35 years. This is a statement of not martyrdom, but reality. I feel that I'm deployed, right? I'm one of us, you know? We have to go tell a new generation the gospel of Jesus Christ, regardless of whether they're in a red state or a blue state, whether it's a D or an R, whatever, wherever God has called us in our vocation, wherever, right? Army, nursing, journalism, education, whatever it is, we have to go serve Christ and we have to serve other people, right? It's about Christ and his kingdom. That's what it's about, right? Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You bet. God bless. Yeah, yeah.